Headquarters brings you the Texas Governor's Race Post-Debate Special.
Hello and welcome to our special coverage of the Texas Governor's Debate. I'm Daniel Marin.
Hi everybody, I'm Brian Mudd. We're going to take a deeper dive into the key issues the candidates spoke to you about in tonight's debate. This debate in South Texas just 5 weeks before Texas voters make their choice between Republican Governor Greg Abbott or Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke. We've got highlights from the debate. We hear more from Edinburgh and analysis from our teams all across the state.
And this includes live coverage from Dallas, where we're following a focus group of voters. Did tonight's event sway any of them toward one candidate or the other?
Yeah, plus we're live at the Governor's Mansion with our panel of political experts digging into the messages from the candidates and what that could mean for voters.
Well, tonight's debate had several memorable moments. The first came soon after it started when we asked the candidates about the busing of migrants. O'Rourke called it a stunt and upheld his hometown of El Paso as a place working toward immigration solutions. And then that led to this exchange.
He mentioned El Paso. The fact of the matter is the El Paso mayor, a Democrat, the El Paso City Council, Democrats, they are now busing more people than the state of Texas is busing. And he's not calling them out for them busing people to other regions.
Different program. It is apples to oranges. And I'll tell you, this hateful rhetoric, this treating human beings as political pawns, talking about invasions in Texas, Texans defending themselves, that's how people get killed at the Walmart in El Paso.
More about this in just a moment. Of course, one of the other big moments was the exchange where O'Rourke denied Abbott's allegations about him wanting to defund police.
Of course I don't, and no one does. But let's look at my record. I think that's the best thing to look at, and then we'll look at the governors. On the El Paso City Council, I raised police salaries 12% in the 6 years that I served there. In Congress, I funded $11 billion to local and state law enforcement across this country, including in Texas. I want to fund law enforcement, fund training.
Beto clearly said that in response to Minneapolis, that he supports their idea of defunding and dismantling police. And I got to add this. He didn't say a word to criticize the city of Austin that defunded their police by more than $100 million. The law I passed will prevent any city from defunding the police because in Texas, we support our law enforcement officers, period.
Interesting stuff in the debate, of course, coming at a critical time in the campaigns where candidates are locking down every last vote they can.
Yeah, before tonight, though, the polling showed that it's not that close, at least not right now. Our poll by Emerson College and The Hill shows O'Rourke trailing Governor Abbott by 8 points. The numbers show 50% of Texas voters backing Abbott. Other polls have also shown O'Rourke trailing, so he needs to sway those undecided and independent voters over to his side. But the question, of course, is did tonight's debate move the needle for either of the candidates?
Yeah, $1 million question there politically. And the needles, of course, can move both ways in these things. Those of you following us online had a chance to watch some of that reaction in real time. Our Jackie Kingston joins us live from Dallas now with a panel of mainly undecided voters who were registering their feelings during the debate. And Jackie, they had a lot of hot topics to respond to.
We certainly did. Welcome to Dallas and one of the most exclusive watch parties across the state of Texas tonight. We're joined by a diverse group of voters, many of which are undecided on these topics and on these two candidates, or they were prior to about an hour ago. We gathered this focus group together of Democrats, of Republicans, of independents, all from varied and diverse backgrounds to tell us more about how they feel about what they heard during this debate. We're so grateful that y'all were able to be here tonight. We're grateful for your insight that you've already offered for us, and we'll be talking with you a little bit more in this broadcast tonight. But we were able to get those by the minute and by the moment updates from these undecided and some decided voters here in studio, thanks to the work of our data experts who are standing by just across the studio from me now. We have Dan and we have Dave, who are here all afternoon working with the technology that we used, the dials that we'll explain in just a moment, to make sure that they were all calibrated, all ready for these group of voters that we brought in tonight. Dan and Dave, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for your work tonight. Let's talk first about the technology that we used with this group of voters. Everything go to plan?
Yes, we had everything that was operating the way it's supposed to, so we're happy with the results.
It seems like the dials that these voters were able to use, these here about the size of a cell phone, they're pretty intuitive. What was the metric that they were using to rate the responses from the candidates?
So before we actually began our survey, we did instruct them on how to use the dials. So if they liked what it is that they were seeing, if they felt favorable towards it, we would instruct them to dial up, turn the dial anywhere between 51 to 100. If they were neutral about it, we would kept it at 50, and then if they felt negative or unfavorable, then go down to 49 all the way down to 0. The farther you go to the right or to the left, the more strongly you feel about that. So the results it is that you're watching was the average of all the independents, all the Democrats, all the Republicans. So that is what it is that you're observing.
And what's the benefit of having that data, Dave?
Well, very similar to what happens when you do a focus group for lawyers, for example. They'll do mock trials, and so they want to see how people respond to different topics. And so in a very similar vein here, what you were able to see is how people were responding to the different topics it is that were brought up by our candidates today.
And knowing that this is the only debate that these two candidates have agreed to this point, there'll be some interesting data coming out of this and some important data for all sides of this debate and this election. Dave, Dan, thank you for your work today. Thanks for making sure that we had these responses. We did have a couple of moments in this debate where these voters were very decided, very passionate, one way or the other, and all over the place. And we were able to watch that in real time because of that data. And our viewers were able to watch that as well on stations and websites all across Texas. So some of the answers that these voters were looking for, they told us before they came into this focus group tonight, were issues about abortion and immigration, inflation and mass shootings, and how to handle gun control in the state of Texas. We'll be talking with these voters throughout the rest of the hour in just a few minutes, so we'll get their response, talk to them one-on-one, and see what they have to say about what they were able to watch tonight. But for now, we'll send it back to you in Austin.
Hey, Jackie, I have a quick question for you. Was there a moment in the debate, I know that they had their controllers, but was there a moment in the debate that drew kind of an audible response from these voters there?
You know, it's interesting. At the very end of the debate, when we were kind of wrapping things up, when the two candidates were giving their final statements, our panel here, our focus group, were a little bit more audible with their reaction to these candidates. But they've been a little reactionary all night. They're ready to talk. They're ready to give their opinion in the next segment that we have.
Very good. We'll look forward to that, Jackie, and everybody there in Dallas. Thank you. Some varied, immediate responses there. Maybe some deeper perspective now on how the candidate's performance will play long-term on votes and in policy.
Let's go live to the governor's mansion here in Austin. Joining us now is Josh Hinkle, host of our State of Texas Politics program. And Josh, you brought together a few experts to go over the responses.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And in just over 5 weeks from tonight, we will know whether voters decide that Governor Greg Abbott should continue living here or whether Beto O'Rourke will become the first Democrat in nearly 3 decades to call this place home. But tonight, this place is the site for a panel of political experts. Joining us now is John Whitman, the founder of Whitman Public Affairs here in Austin, and he's worked in Texas politics for nearly a decade, including as Governor Greg Abbott's former communications director. He's also managed the communications team on Abbott's successful 2018 re-election campaign. And Katie Naranjo has served as the chair of the Travis County Democratic Party since 2020. She has extensive campaign experience as a consultant, recruiter, and fundraising organizer for Democratic candidates. She's also a healthcare advocate and CEO of a small business here in Austin. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Josh.
I want to ask you to start off, what were your general impressions of the debate? How did you think it went tonight, John?
Yeah, you know, Josh, I think that overall it was actually a pretty non-dramatic debate, which I think is a really good thing for Greg Abbott. I think the Abbott campaign has to be feeling really good tonight and feeling like they came out on top with a win. In a debate like this, typically the challenger who is down really needs to have that breakout moment. I didn't see that tonight from Beto O'Rourke, and so Greg Abbott has to feel really good tonight.
Katie?
While I agree there wasn't a breakout moment in the debate, I think the reality is accountability has been established. The lack of accountability the governor has put when it comes to in his immigration policies, his stunts, in fact, when it comes to gun control. And so if you, as a female voter, a mom sitting there listening myself, think holding people accountable, that is a breakaway moment, then it gives voters the power to hold the governor accountable.
You mentioned immigration. Obviously, this debate was in South Texas, so immigration and the border were big topics in the debate. Let's take a listen to what the candidates had to say about that.
Texas has responded by making sure that we have the National Guard and DPS deployed where they're making arrests and turning back illegal immigrants, as well as what we're doing to help local communities by busing them from the area where Border Patrol is dropping them off to sanctuary cities in northeastern parts of the country. But what we're doing is making sure that we are keeping our community safe, and this is completely different than the way things would be under Beto, because he said months ago, there is no problem on the border.
We are 8 years into his time as governor, and this is what we have on our border. In fact, $4 billion into Operation Lone Star. We're seeing not fewer, but more encounters at our border right now. What we need is a safe, legal, orderly path for anyone who wants to come here to work, to join family, or to seek asylum. If you come to this country, we expect...
So there you heard the candidates talking about the border and the strategy that the current administration has had. Beto O'Rourke also talked about the fact that Democrats believe that the busing strategy is a stunt. Can you respond to that?
So Texans, taxpayer dollars, are spending billions and millions of dollars, not just in the transportation, but in Operation Lone Star, which has yielded no results. We've taken money from healthcare, education, etc., instead of looking for real solutions. This is not a Texas problem, it's an international problem. It's a humanitarian crisis. And if Governor Abbott wanted to lead on issues like immigration, he would focus on bringing infrastructure down to the Border Patrol agents who need it, as well as to the communities who are seeking to provide people access to jobs and humanitarian funding, instead of busing them to Chicago and Washington, D.C. for political ploy.
What are your thoughts on that strategy?
Well, I have to disagree with that, Josh. Let's be honest. Operation Lone Star has resulted in nearly 20,000 criminal illegal alien arrests. It has resulted in 350 million lethal doses of fentanyl coming off the streets. So the reality is that Operation Lone Star is working. And it sounds to me like Beto O'Rourke just wants to simply open the borders and let everyone in. It sounds like he wants to take all those existing resources that are securing our border and take them away and subscribe to the Joe Biden policies of a completely open border.
2 years versus 8. In 2 years, President Biden has been the president for 2 years, whereas Abbott has been for 8. We have now 2 million interactions of folks coming across the border illegally. We have 116,000 people looking for refugee status or asylum. And so what's happened is that in 8 years, Governor Abbott has done nothing that actually yields real results. Putting people in jail is more taxpayer dollars spent versus looking for real solutions with our federal allies as well as with Mexico.
Brief response.
The bottom line is this. Texas has stepped up where the federal government has failed. They continue to fail in their constitutional responsibility to actually secure our border. And Texas and Greg Abbott are stepping up and doing that.
All right, much more to get back to a little later in the show. We do need to send it back to the studio right now, though.
All right, Josh, thank you very much. We'll check in with you in just a bit. We do have much more ahead on our Texas governor's race post-debate special.
We'll take a closer look at what the candidates said about guns and abortion. And first, more on the immigration debate. We started the conversation there at the mansion. The governor's decisions have made this a galvanizing issue for the candidates and for voters. Perspective from South Texas in a live report after the break.
And welcome back to our special coverage of the Texas governor's debate. We're taking a deeper dive into the key issues at the heart of tonight's debates.
Look, no accident that South Texas was the choice for the debate site here. Immigration, the situation at the border, big spotlight early for these candidates tonight. I want to get you some insight from the debate stage in Edinburgh and our Britt Moreno. Britt, we saw some passionate responses, but I wonder, what was the vibe there, though, with no audience in the room to get that immediate feedback?
Yes, it was different. You heard Mr. O'Rourke sort of call out the governor for setting these certain criteria for here in the stadium. This stadium can hold 1,600 people tonight. It was empty, except for the moderators, of course, the candidates, and myself and our crew operating the cameras. It was different. I will tell you, I don't think we knew exactly what to expect. We were anticipating some emotion and some spirit from both candidates, but remember, we haven't seen them square off or be in the same space even since that horrific event in Uvalde. You might remember back in May, the governor was giving a press conference on the victims, and Mr. O'Rourke interrupted that press conference, essentially shouting at the governor saying, "You need to do more," and that this was on his hands. So when they came in, I think we were all wondering, what's it going to be like? What's the tone here? They shook hands before the debate. They shook hands after the debate, but certainly they did go after each other, much like we saw in some of their ads before this debate ever took place tonight. But you mentioned it, guys. It is no coincidence we are here in South Texas tonight. You know, we're right on the border in the Rio Grande Valley, and I want to talk more about the significance of holding this debate where the eyes of the nation are really watching what we do here in South Texas. So I'd like to bring on my colleague Sandra Sanchez with Border Report, who's joining us tonight. She's really an expert in this region. You know, we're holding it here in South Texas. Obviously, immigration is top of mind for many folks here. And Sandra, I worked here back in 2008, and I can tell you the same issues we were dealing with then, we're dealing with tonight. People are calling for more protections. They say they need more resources and that they need some help. How do you think immigration played out tonight on this stage?
Right. Well, immigration was the most talked about topic, as expected here, being on the border. And the fact that immigration, border security is not just a border issue, it's not just a Texas issue, it is a national issue. We brought the eyes of the nation here for this reason. They spent 12 minutes on the topic. Now, both of them mostly colored within the lines. They stayed with their own narratives. Governor Abbott blamed the Biden administration, and Congressman O'Rourke blamed Abbott on chaos, as he called it. But they did make some news tonight.
One thing that stood out to me was sort of a different tone from Mr. O'Rourke. He promised working across party lines and working with Republicans. And up until this night, I really wasn't clear on whether he actually saw a problem here in our border communities. He acknowledged that there was, which I thought was different. The other thing that stood out to me was that he said, you know, we need to develop a guest worker program. Have you heard him saying things like this?
Well, you know, he's backed helping Dreamers and DACA participants. The guest worker Texas-based program, I wish we would have gotten more on that. I'm sure it's a way to employ migrants and to boost our economic resources, to fill the jobs here. The other thing that he said that I thought that was really interesting that I hadn't heard was a voluntary National Guard's participation. I don't know how that would work, and I wish we could have had more time to explain it. The other thing that Governor Abbott talked about had to do with the busing in New York. Did you catch that?
Yes.
He said that Mayor Adams had never reached out to his office, and Mayor Adams said recently, told the Texas Tribune, that they did reach out and they were trying to coordinate the receipt of these migrants or the stop of them. But Abbott said he was doing them a favor by sending them to cities that they wanted to go to.
You know, we wanted to learn more about some of the specifics with immigration and the border. We wanted to know if Governor Abbott would at least admit that Operation Lone Star maybe wasn't what he thought it would be. For example, we wanted to know if and what Beto would do should he be governor. The people here were looking for answers. Do you think that they got that commitment from anyone of the candidates?
Well, you know, I thought it was interesting. Governor Abbott said he wished he didn't spend any money on Operation Lone Star. I have never heard him say that. He said if the Biden administration did their job, he wouldn't have to do this. That was an interesting take. Did both of the candidates explain everything they should have? No. I expected Governor Abbott to talk more about the border wall, the state-funded border wall. Yesterday, there was a report that he issued a contract for $300 million to build 14 more miles, 7 of it here and 7 in Del Rio. Why didn't Congressman O'Rourke bring that up? Why didn't he talk about how much money that costs the state and how long it's taken to do it? Or the economic resources and vitality of this region that were shut down in April for 4 days when the Mexican truckers blocked the bridge because they were protesting the inspections caused by Operation Lone Star. Not to pick on Governor Abbott, because he could have brought up the fact that he negotiated MOUs with the governors of Mexico, and now they're inspecting the trucks south of the border. There was more I wish we could have heard.
We needed more time for that.
But I have to say, there was such a great variety of topics, and I'm glad that we heard the others.
And that's what I think is the takeaway from tonight. You know, we talked about immigration here, but the folks here in South Texas want people to know we are more than just a border of community with issues. No, we have economic trade that's happening here and international business. So it will be interesting to see if what the candidate said tonight spoke to people here in South Texas and really all of Texas. Guys, with that, we'll send it back.
Britt, Sandra, thank you. We'll be watching for that vote on election night for sure. Still to come, what the candidates for governor are saying about guns in the wake of the Uvalde shooting.
First, the issue, though, of abortion leads to an interesting exchange between the candidates. You're watching the Texas governor's race post-debate special.
Welcome back to our special continuing coverage of the Texas governor's debate. If you're just clicking back on with us, we're taking an in-depth look at tonight's responses from the candidates.
One of the sharpest differences between Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke is, of course, their positions on abortion rights. And, of course, the candidates were asked about this tonight. Now, for some insight on what they said or didn't say, let's go back to State of Texas host Josh Hinkle, live outside the governor's mansion, along with a pair of political experts.
Well, as you might have guessed, abortion was a big factor in tonight's debate, and abortion has actually become a bigger issue in the election after the Supreme Court has overturned Roe versus Wade. It was certainly on a lot of voters' minds, we know, because we take a look at a poll recently from Emerson College and The Hill that asked Texas voters whether overturning Roe would make them more or less likely to vote. 54% said that decision made them more likely to vote in November. Just 4% said it made them less likely to vote. 41% though said it made no difference at all. The question of abortion and access to abortion really did come up in tonight's debate in some interesting ways. Let's take a listen.
Is emergency contraception a viable alternative to abortion for victims of rape and incest? And you have 60 seconds, sir.
Sure. So to directly answer the topics that you raised, on the availability of it, it's incumbent upon the state of Texas to make sure that it is readily available. For those who are victims of sexual assault or survivors of sexual assault, the state of Texas pays for that, whether it be at a hospital, at a clinic, or for someone who gets a prescription because of it. And so not only should be readily available, but the state of Texas is going to pay for it to make sure that it is available for them.
This election is about reproductive freedom. If you care about this, you need to turn out and vote. I will fight to make sure that every woman in Texas can make her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care. And I will work with the legislature and my fellow Texans to return us to the standard that Texas women won in the first place. This silliness on Plan B, this comment he made about eliminating rape in the state of Texas, this is an attack on women. More women have been raped in the state of Texas than any other state.
All right, so you heard it there, and also our political insiders are here to weigh in on this. We have John Whitman and Katie Naranjo. Katie, I want to start with you. What we heard the governor saying focused a lot on emergency contraception and access to that. What did you think when you heard what he had to say?
I thank God that he is not an OBGYN, because he clearly does not know how Plan B works, as well as rape and or being a victim of rape. And while this is one facet of reproductive health care, there are many other issues that are at play here. We're talking about constitutional rights. A person in Texas who is able to carry a child has less rights today than they did when Governor Abbott first went into office. And he has made it not only illegal to seek an abortion in the state of Texas in terms of rape or incest, but also we have an attorney general fighting to make sure in the life of a mother that people are still prosecuted if they aid and abet an abortion in Texas.
What do you think, John?
Well, I think one of the most powerful moments of this debate regarding abortion tonight was actually when Governor Abbott spoke about his daughter and the adoption that they went through and the importance of protecting innocent human life. And I think that was actually a really powerful moment that connected a lot with voters. You know, Beto likes to throw around words like extremism on this issue, but the reality is that Beto doesn't believe in any limits on abortion whatsoever. Up until 39 weeks, he refused to answer the question again tonight. He is on the record saying that he doesn't believe in any limits on abortion. So as much as he loves to throw around the word extremism, he's got a real problem with that.
Do you know anyone that's actually ever had an abortion at 39 weeks?
I'm sorry.
Exactly. Again, it's using political ploys and talking in extremes
then
on
why is it so
reproductive
hard?
issues.
Then why is it so hard for Beto to say that you shouldn't be able to have an abortion at 39 weeks?
More importantly, why does the Republican Party want to expand more rights, wanting to know what's going on in my body, than protecting the innocent lives, as you so claim, when it comes to children in schools or in church?
I don't think there's anything extremism about trying to protect innocent human life.
Except for when it comes to gun control. That's our issue here. We want to make sure that women are forced to give birth, and then we don't want to actually protect the children when they're born.
I still don't know where Beto O'Rourke stands on the issue after tonight.
We do need to leave it there. We will have more post-debate coverage just ahead, including a closer look at whether each candidate made their mark on undecided voters. Stay with us.
And welcome back to our post-debate coverage. Earlier in the program, we showed you how we followed a panel of undecided voters as they watched the debate.
And they've had some more time to think about it, so we want to know if the candidates' messages swayed any of them one way or the other. And to do that, we go back to our Jackie Kingston live in Dallas with that panel of voters. Jackie, what are they telling you about the debate now?
Mostly undecided voters here in Dallas. We got to watch as the two candidates talked about Uvalde and the mass shooting and gun control and their response to that. Our panel were pretty vocal at that point, but have more to say. But we want to take you back to that moment in the debate and let you see what we saw here in the studio as our panel, our focus group, were able to use their dials and react to that moment in the debate in real time. Take a look.
This is going to be an emergency item. Over the summer, I requested special legislative committees to begin working already so that they will have ready when we begin the session to address Uvalde, but the broader-based issue across the entire state of Texas,
if it's an emergency,
as you
call a
mentioned
special
earlier.
session now. Why wait till the next year?
Mr. O'Rourke, a question for you now.
Gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in this state. Why are you waiting to save lives?
So many here of our group of our focus group, some of our undecided voters, many of you I know tonight, thanks again for being here, are parents. And the gun debate was something that you were really passionate about and had a strong reaction to, as we just saw during that soundbite. Was anyone swayed during that discussion? What decisions were you able to make tonight? You here in the front.
So I don't know if it was swayed was the word or unswayed, but I know one thing going into this debate, Abbott refused to participate if there was going to be his own constituents in the crowd. And this happened in the southern border. That's not Uvalde per se, but that to me was very telling that, you know, a two-term governor was going to refuse to participate if his own constituents were in the crowd. So that kind of, I went in here undecided with open mind, but, you know, reading that earlier today going in, it definitely, you know, swayed me in a more negative way towards Mr. Abbott.
Talking about the gun debate, talking about and hearing the candidates and what they had to say about Uvalde tonight. I know a lot of you are parents in the room this evening. Did what you hear during the debate change your mind or elicit a reaction from you either way? Were you moved emotionally by what they had to say? You keep having a reaction. Would you respond to that?
From a parent and a teacher perspective,
yeah,
it's just very hard to unsee things like what we've all seen on the news and televised events. So you don't have to be somebody that's in the classroom every day like me. You don't have to be somebody who drops your kids off every day to understand and know the impact of Uvalde and moving forward, you know, in the future, never letting anything like that happen ever again.
I know that you guys had a lot to say during the focus group. We were able to track your reactions in real time. But before our debate this evening, we polled you with a couple of questions. And one of the responses that we got, we want to share with you now. We have a graphic to show you. This is how you voted. If we, as we said earlier today, who would you vote for if the debate were if the election were happening tonight? Were happening before the debate this evening. And this was the results from that poll that we took in real time here. Greg Abbott leading, the incumbent, Governor Greg Abbott, Beto O'Rourke bringing in 27%, our undecided voters 33% as well. As we talk about that, and we talk about the way that you've responded throughout the debate and the way that I know many of you have said that these candidates moved you tonight, I want to ask you the same question. So pick up your clickers one more time, and I'll ask you just to vote. This is another mock election. The election is happening now. If you would vote for Governor Greg Abbott, the incumbent, move your dial to number 1. If you would vote for Beto O'Rourke, move your dial to number 2. And if you're still undecided after that debate this evening, move your dial to number 3. So Greg Abbott 1, Beto O'Rourke 2, undecided 3. Go ahead and lock in your answers now. We want to take that poll as well. Did any of you, who I know that many of you said that you planned to vote in the November 8th election, just a show of hands tonight, have any of you decided that you don't want to vote, or are all of you more determined than ever to get out and vote? More determined than ever?
Definitely going to vote.
Definitely going to vote. We're glad to hear that. I want to ask you too, you know, there were a lot of issues. Do you feel like you got more clarity? Again, a show of hands. Did any of you walk out of here knowing for sure how the candidates stand on the issue that you cared most about tonight? Did you get the answer you wanted? Show of hands if you did get the answer you wanted. And some of you did not get the answer that you wanted. Fascinating results. Thanks so much for being here. We want to see if we can take a look at the polling numbers. Do we have the results from the mock election that we just took here? Let's take a look at how you would vote after the debate. The undecided number shrank. Beto O'Rourke is now in the lead with 50% of our voters here, and Governor Abbott is losing that election if the election were held this evening. Again, thank you to all of you for weighing in. Thanks for being here. Don't forget that you can watch the reaction, the debate again with our focus group and their reaction in real time throughout the debate with that meter on the screen, as you saw in the soundbite that we took just a moment ago, on our websites across the state. That'll be available for replay, where you can watch as our focus group was able to respond. Some interesting data coming out of Dallas, y'all.
All right, Jackie, thank you so much, and send our thanks along to the men and women there who helped us out tonight. Still to come, the candidates and guns and Texas schools.
We'll dig deeper with our panel of experts live. You are watching the Texas governor's race post-debate special.
All right, our in-depth coverage of the Texas governor's debate rolls on tonight.
And we want to return to Edinburgh now, the site of tonight's debate. Joining us now is Sally Hernandez, Gromer Jeffers, and Steve Spriester, the three panelists from tonight's debate. And it appears that they do have Beto O'Rourke there with them.
We do, yes. Hi, guys. Yeah, he walked into the stage just a short time ago. Mr. O'Rourke, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
You know, I just want to let our audience at home know that we invited you and Governor Abbott back to the stage to, you know, talk about anything you wanted during this post-debate show. Why did you decide to come back?
Well, one, I want to make sure that I have a chance to continue to answer your questions. I think it's important for anyone seeking this position to be held accountable by those that they want to serve. It's why I hold open to the public town hall forums all across the state, in really big cities, in really small rural counties. I want to listen to and answer to those who are going to put me into this position and make sure that I can deliver for them. And so We would love to have more debates. The governor's only agreed to this one. We've accepted 4 more invitations. So any chance I can get to share what I think we can do together for Texas, or to answer questions from those who are seeking to make sure that we hold public leaders accountable, I just think that's the right thing to do.
Well, let's talk about tonight. I know you love the town hall format. The debate format with no crowd is not always your favorite thing, right? I mean, so what were your goals tonight? Did you think you accomplished them? What did you set? What did you want to do? And how do you feel afterwards?
I want the people of this state to know that after 8 years, Greg Abbott has failed us. He failed us on the grid. It killed 700 people. Our utility bills have gone up. That grid is still not fixed. He's failed us on school shootings. It's been more than 18 weeks without any action following the Uvalde massacre to make it any less likely that that happens in any other community. He's failed us on women's health care and reproductive freedoms, the most extreme abortion ban in America right now. And it makes no sense to entrust this person after 8 years of failures with another 4 years. So my goal was to make sure that every Texan knows the true cost and consequence of Greg Abbott being in office and how badly he's failed us and just how extreme he is. And I know that I got that across over the course of the debate. And I think that gives people an opportunity now to vote for change. Someone who's going to prioritize things that we agree on, like funding our public schools, expanding Medicaid, making marijuana legal, focusing on those things that will create more and higher paying jobs and reduce inflation in the state of Texas.
How relieved are you that you could answer that question and not have a bell go off? That's what I want to know in this whole thing.
Or Sally.
Yeah, or Sally or myself or Romer. I mean, as a moderator, time is kind of what we have to do. But is there something that you wish? I mean, we have so many questions in here we did not get to. Yeah. And so that's why we were trying to keep to a time so we could get all these questions. Is there something that we didn't bring up that you wish we would have?
Something that I hear across the state and rarely makes the news, or not often enough, is what's happening in our foster care system today. 32,000 children in that system. Often they can be found sleeping at CPS offices, under the desks, out in the hallways. We lost the lives of about 100 of those kids just over the last year and a half. Abbott was warned about failures in CPS 7 years ago, and the Judge Janice Jack, who first warned him about that, this year said it has gone from bad to worse. It follows a pattern of him being warned about school shootings, the grid, CPS, and then not fixing it and people getting hurt or dying as a result. But I want to make sure that we also look at how we can improve these, elevate the most vulnerable, make sure those foster kids get the care and the help that they need, and turn around CPS.
I just want you to know that they told me in my ear you had 30 seconds about a minute ago, but I didn't listen to that.
Yeah, we did not. We didn't make a bell sound.
I wanted you to make your point, and I appreciate that you did.
Thank you so much. You all did an amazing job moderating this. Thank you seriously for doing that.
It's our pleasure. Brett?
He's got it loaded here.
All right, thank you so much. Let's send things back out to the governor's mansion and Josh Hinkle for some reaction from our 2 political experts from what we just heard from Mr. O'Rourke. Yeah.
We know that a good deal of the debate really took up some time talking about guns, and that's been so top of mind, everything that happened in May in Uvalde. A lot of those parents were there today outside to talk to different things. Can you talk? All right, I think we're still with you guys, but John, could you respond to how you thought the candidates did when we were hearing what they had to say about guns?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to point out that candidates only come back out to spin if they lost the debate, so that's a real problem for Beto. Secondly, regarding guns, Beto talks a lot about all these things that he wants to do regarding guns, but he has to actually work within the confines of the legislature. The governor is not a king. The governor has to work with the legislature. The Speaker of the House has already talked about some of these issues and the votes not being there. So Beto really needs to understand how the governor's role actually works. He is not a dictator. He's not able to just go in and wave a magic wand and do whatever he wants. Additionally, it sounds to me like he still wants to take people's AR-15s away. He didn't actually answer the question again tonight.
Interestingly enough, neither did you. When it comes to gun control, What voters in Texas have to decide is, do they believe that Governor Abbott is going to make it less safe or more safe for their children to be able to go to school, to be able to go to a grocery store, to be able to go to church? And what voters did not hear tonight was a solution. What they did hear is the fact that Governor Abbott has made it less safe in Texas. Open carry, permitless carry, also known as intimidation carry, was actually what he passed after the Walmart shooting. Since then, we've seen gun violence increase by 64% across the state of Texas. This is a governor that Texans cannot afford to support this November because of a life and death situation.
We also heard about the grid today. We have about a minute left, 30 seconds on what you thought they had to say about the power grid in Texas.
We need to fix the damn grid. And it's not fixed, and no one's been held accountable. Tonight, we saw that Beto O'Rourke, when he came out after the debate, is there to be held accountable. What we need is more debates and more discourse in this governor's race. And we haven't even talked about important issues like healthcare and the fact that we have a crisis in nursing shortage and a crisis in our schools.
John, what did you think?
Yeah, we had one of the hottest summers on record, and it's clear that the grid was actually resilient. The bills that were passed last legislative session fixed the grid. Beto continues to pray for some odd reason that the grid will go out and Texans will suffer. Why, I don't understand. But the reality is that the grid held up this summer because of the laws that Greg Abbott signed during the regular legislative session.
Final thoughts?
I think that voters cannot afford to miss this election in November. If you do not turn out and vote in November, you will elect the next governor to be Greg Abbott. If women, if young people, if folks who care about making sure that the lives of Texans are better and that we fix a grid and that we make sure we're not paying for the mishaps of our governor, and you show up and vote this November, then we'll have Beto O'Rourke as the next governor of the state of Texas.
Sorry, 10 seconds left.
Sure. I think the reality is this debate did not change the trajectory of this race. Greg Abbott will be governor again for another 4 years.
All right, we'll send it back to you in the studio. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Josh, everyone, thank you so much. More of our coverage in just a moment.
Most of this hour, but we're shifting gears here as we wrap up tonight.
I want to take you around the state and look at some of the races and issues important to Texas voters everywhere. And as you'll see, some of the key decisions will come deeper down the ballot.
Welcome to Amarillo. This election season, there are a couple of big races we're keeping an eye on. The first is for U.S. Representative District 13, where Ronnie Jackson is seeking re-election for the first time. He faces Democratic challenger Kathleen Brown. Jackson was elected in 2020 to replace long-standing Representative Mac Thornberry. Also on our radar is the race for State Representative District 87, where incumbent For Price is facing Libertarian Nick Hearn. Price has served 6 terms in the State House and has been endorsed by Governor Greg Abbott. And a third big race we're watching for is the unopposed race for State Senate District 31. Longtime State Senator Kel Seliger decided against running last year. Kevin Sparks from the Midland area won the Republican primary and will be stepping into Seliger's seat in January. Back to you.
For KMAC News in Lubbock, Texas, I'm Ryan Chandler. Here in West Texas, the election of consequence is the Republican primary. Our state representative Dustin Burrows and state senator Charles Perry are heading back to Austin for the 88th session, along with freshman representative Carl Tepper, who's going to be a new face in the House after filling John Frullo's old seat. But in a county that Donald Trump won by 32 points in 2020, none of them have Democratic challengers. But this year, statewide candidates have recognized more than ever that West Texas and our margins matter. Governor Abbott knows that he can't win out here with just 55%. He needs something closer to 70% to make up the bluer and bluer margins in the big Texas cities. Meanwhile, Beto O'Rourke and his down-ballot Democratic companions have been fighting for every rural red vote. The West Texas margins will be the factor to watch on election night.
I'm Rob Tuke with ABC Big 2 News here in Midland, Odessa. And 3 candidates are hoping to be the next mayor of Midland. It's a race that voters are keeping a close eye on. One of those candidates is former Midland Mayor Jerry Morales. He's facing current City Councilwoman Lori Blanc and Robert Allen Dickinson. Current Midland Mayor Patrick Payton has decided to step down. We've heard from 2 of those candidates so far. Morales says he wants to help Midland continue to grow, while Blanc says she's focused on the appropriate spending of tax money. Here in Midland, I'm Rob Tuke.
I'm KXAN's Grace Reeder here in Austin, Texas. This November, there are 5 Austin City Council seats up for grabs and a whopping nearly 30 people looking to take those spots. But perhaps the most heated race here in Austin is going to be the race for mayor. Austin Mayor Steve Adler will vacate his seat at the end of his term, leaving it open. There are 6 candidates looking to take that spot, including former Austin Mayor and Senator Kirk Watson and Representative Celia Israel. Austin voters will also see a $350 million affordable housing bond on their ballot this year. If passed, it would be the largest housing bond in Austin to date. Reporting from Austin, I'm Grace Reeder, KXAN News.
I'm Derek Garcia in Brownsville. On the ballot is the battle for the border, House District 34 that is, between Republican Mayra Flores and Vicente Gonzalez, a Democrat in the race. Flores won in a special election to finish Democrat Filemon Vela's term when he resigned, but aims to keep the district seat. But because of redistricting, Gonzalez is gunning for the seat and may end up taking it based on voter turnout. Democrats in this district do turn out to vote. For example, when Vela won in 2020, he had 111,000 votes. The Republican in that race, Ray Gonzalez Jr., had 84,000. When Flores won in the special election, she had 14,799 votes. The Democrat in the race, Dan Sanchez, had 12,606 votes. This race has a lot riding on it because the GOP wants to take the border. Will a Democrat take it back, or will the Republicans reign? We'll find out on Election Day.
And as you saw, many of the important races for local communities go beyond the top of the ballot. So it's a good idea to know in advance what's at stake before you go to the polls.
And there are some important dates coming up soon for this election as well. Remember, the last day you can register to vote in the election is Tuesday, October 11th. That'll be here before we know it. First day you can vote early, Monday, October 24th, which runs then through Friday, November 4th. Election Day, Tuesday, the 8th.
And there's much more from the Texas gubernatorial debate and post-analysis. You can stay up to date and informed on what the candidates are saying by watching the full event right now. Just look for this story in the politics section of this station's website. Thank you so much for joining us for our special coverage of the Texas governor's debate.
Remember to stay informed, stay engaged, and make sure to exercise your right to vote. Good night, everybody.